afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. A very warm welcome to this ADR and National Election Watch webinar on right to information and role of political parties. We are very happy to announce that we have very eminent panelists with us today to discuss on this very important topic. Let me very briefly introduce the speakers, panelists today, and later on I will introduce them one by one. So we have with us the head of ADR, retired Major General Anil Verma ji. And he, as I have said, he is the head of ADR and he looks after all ADR's activities pan-India level. We have with us Professor Omprakash Mishra, and he's a very eminent political analyst, politician, as well as professor. We also have with us Shri Asit Mitra, eminent politician, veteran politician, and he's a member of Indian National Congress, and he's a member of Legislative Assembly. We are pleased to have Shri Manoj Bhattacharya, very well-known eminent politician, and he's the All India General Secretary of RSP. We have we are probably still waiting for Sri Partha Ghosh. He is the convener of BJP legal cell and advocate Kolkata High Court. We hope that he will join us in due course. Maybe he is having any technical problem. So without waiting much for Sri Partha Ghosh, let us start our today's conversation on right to information and role of political parties. Before that, let me introduce myself also. I am Dr. Ujjwaini Halim. I am the state coordinator of West Bengal Election Watch and closely associated with National Election Watch process and Association for Democratic Reform. So once again, warm welcome to this webinar, and I thank all the guests for finding time. I mean, all of you are very busy, and thank you for finding time to attend this ADR National Election Watch webinar, and we look forward for a very engaging dialogue and discussion. This is this entire thing is live in YouTube and Facebook, so we are also hoping to have some interesting questions. So while we start our interaction, I would request retired Major General Anil Verma ji to be the very first panel speaker today and to give us a brief overview of ADR's work in relation to right to information. Let me introduce retired Major General Anil Verma ji. He is an alumnus of St. Xavier's School, Delhi, and Sri Ram College, Commerce, Delhi. In 1975, he joined the Indian Army and retired after 37 years of distinguished service. Currently, he is the head of Association for Democratic Reform since December 2013. He frequently writes in English and Hindi newspapers, magazines on issues related to electoral and political reforms. He has represented ADR in many national and international events. Time to time, he is also invited to interact with foreign delegations on issues of governance and advocacy, transparency and accountability in electoral processes, citizens' engagement through RTI, etc. On 25th January 2020, on National Voters' Day, on behalf of ADR, Major General Verma received the National Civil Society Organizations Award at the hands of the President of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind ji, in presence of Sri Ravi Shankar Prasad ji, CEC, and other election commissioner for the voter awareness campaign of ADR. So it would be very interesting to listen from Anil Verma ji about ADR's insight regarding right to information, how ADR looks at it, and what ADR's position is on right to information and role of political parties, which is our today's topic. So over to Anil Verma ji.
Thank you, Jenny ji. Am I audible to everyone? Can everybody hear me? Hello? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Jenny ji, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on this webinar. and good to see some old faces whenever we have had events with the West Bengal Election Watch. Manoj ji is a frequent participant, and it's always a pleasure to hear him. And some of the others also I have heard earlier. So basically, RTI, as you're all aware, last month, I think around 15th October, it completed 15 years of existence. And over the last few years, what we are seeing is a steady deterioration in the functioning. Uh, I would say thanks to the powers that be, that the various issues are there with the RTI functioning, the appointment of information commissioners in the states, the pending cases in the states, and the CIC, of course, has been recently appointed, and so on and so forth. So the basic issue which I am going to focus on is as to how the ADR has been using the RTI Act after it was formulated, and what are the major achievements I would say that we have achieved or not achieved, as I will subsequently come to detail as far as referring to the political parties is concerned. So some of the important issues I would like to highlight is, first is the thing related to the income tax return of the political parties. In 2007, ADR had filed an application for the publication of the income tax returns in the public domain pertaining to the political parties. And so this was filed with the CBDT, CPIO, and in which we asked that the major national parties and the prominent regional parties should have they filed their income tax returns for the period from 2002 to 2007. All the CPIOs of CBDT refused, barring two, that is J&K. He provided information about the PDP party, and the Assam fellow provided regarding information of the Assam Gun Parishad. Apart from that, all the other CPIs of the country refused. That is, I'm talking about the CBDT. Secondly, the reaction of the political parties. All political parties except CPI and CPIM had objections. The reasons given by them, to name a few: malified intent, politically motivated demand, fiduciary capacity, no public interest would be served, exemption under Section 8(1)(j), political parties are not public authorities, will result in misuse of information, it is invasion of privacy, and so on and so forth. These are the type of reasons given by the political parties. Whereas the Election Commission of India, the Law Commission of India, especially in the 170th Law Commission report, and the civil society has always been demanding internal democracy, fair financial transparency, and accountability in the functioning of the political parties. I mean, this has been a long demand. So when nothing happened, then ADR filed the first appeal, which was addressed to the Commissioner of Income Tax, Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. And when nothing much happened, then the second appeal was filed with the CIC in July 2007. I want to just briefly give you the highlights of the decision which was finally given by the CIC in 2008. Firstly, it said that it is facetious to argue that transparency is good for all the state organs but not so good for the political parties, which actually control most of the important organs under which the government is run. Secondly, for example, transparency is good for the bureaucracies, but not good enough for the political parties which control the bureaucracies through the political executive. And the RTI Act has always emphasized that democracy requires informed citizenry. So transparency of information is vital to the flawless functioning of constitutional democracy. This is all that I am telling you is from the CIC's judgment or the ruling or the order, whatever you may call it. So given that the political parties influence exercise of political power, transparency in their organization, functioning, and especially funding, because ADR is focused on corruption and funding, it is very important democratic imperative, and therefore the demand or the application which was made by the ADR was highly in public interest. So, as a result of this order of the CIC, uh, after that, from 2008 till 2013, we had to acquire this information about the income tax return of the political parties by filing RTIs. And we used to get it late or whatever. I mean, generally it is very late. They don't give it on time. But from the year 2014 onwards, when the chief election commissioner was Dr. Qureshi, this was formalized. And thereafter, on the Election Commission website, the audit and donation reports of all the political parties were made available. So this was the first intervention as far as the RTI goes, as far as ADR was concerned with the political parties. The second thing was the most important one, which we consider is when we filed an application with the Information Commissioner regarding the political parties to be brought under the aegis of the RTI Act. This application was filed in 2010 to the PIO of the six national parties. And what was sought was details of the source of income, mode of income, what was the amount, and the years in which the donation was received. So, again, the response from the political parties, I'm covering it in a very brief nutshell sort of a manner, just to give you an overview. Except CPI, all the other political parties refused the information. The BJP and BSP did not even respond. So ADR filed a complaint with the CIC again, and then the hearings went on. And in March 2011, finally, the details of the very high funding which the political parties were receiving, which we had obtained through various RTI applications, were submitted to the CIC. And then they examined the matter in depth. And finally, on 3rd June 2013, the full bench of the CIC declared that the political parties come under the RTI and declared them as public authorities. Now, as you're all aware, this order was not implemented by the political parties. They just refused point blank, though all of you know that the CIC and the information commissioners are constitutionally appointed. It's a quasi-judicial body, but their order was just not implemented by any of the parties, and they gave the same type of reasons as they had given earlier for the income tax thing, that this is not in the interest, this is not for public view. This will harm the interests of the parties. Why should the internal functioning of the political parties be out in the public domain? Why should we, people will ask, why are you giving tickets to so and so? We are not obliged to give these type of reasons. So, see, the basic thing which was asked was regarding the political funding. It should be very clear where the money is coming from. So they are not happy with that sort of a thing. And as is evident, whenever we talk of electoral or political reforms, all the parties gang up, barring one or two, as I mentioned, and fight tooth and nail. They just do not want, the mindset is such that they do not want any type of reforms as far as the political funding is concerned. So the next step obviously was that ADR had to go to the Supreme Court. So we filed a PIL in the Supreme Court in May 2015, requesting the Supreme Court to have the order of the CIC implemented. By the way, in 2015, when one of the CICs was retiring, because we were pursuing the case with the CIC, that gentleman, just before he retired, he again gave a judgment saying that the 2013 CIC judgment was final and it has to be upheld. Thereafter, we filed a PIL in the Supreme Court requesting them to bring this matter forward. So the last hearing that the Supreme Court gave was in October 2017. Obviously, there are much more important matters which the Supreme Court has to deal with, and therefore did not get time to list this important issue as far as we are concerned. So there are various other, uses which we make of RTI. One is to obtain details of the election expenditure which the political parties incur. Second is we have filed RTIs to obtain information about the income tax returns of unrecognized registered parties. Then, regarding the delisting of political parties, because we have seen that there are, I think over 2,500 parties which are registered with the Election Commission, and barely 22% of them actually contest elections. So, what are the others doing really? Just converting black money into white or what? I don't know. So, as a result of our RTIs, I think in 2016 or so, the Election Commission delisted about 220 political parties who were either non-existent, or the addresses which they gave, there was nobody there. Then we have used RTI to obtain information of the electoral bonds. Now, electoral bonds is a new animal which was created by the existing government, and this is we consider a highly detrimental thing, though it was introduced in the name of transparency in political funding. It is quite the opposite, because when you do not know who the donors are, and as of date, barring this last 14th phase of the sale of electoral bonds, which was just before the Bihar elections, the window in October. We do not know details of that. But prior to that, all the 13 phases of the sale of electoral bonds, about 6,500 crores worth electoral bonds have been sold over the last 2 years only. And out of which, no big surprises. Who's the gainer? 95% is with the ruling party, BJP. Why have the other parties not objected to this? Because they know hamara number bhi kabhi aayega. So they are waiting. So nobody really wants transparency in political funding, as is quite obvious with their silence as far as the electoral bond goes. Now, electoral bonds is again a very important thing, which is going to harm or is harming our this thing, because basically the donors are all corporates. 95% of the electoral bonds which have been sold, purchased, and given to the political parties are in the denomination of 10 lakhs and 1 crore rupees. Who's going to buy that? Not you and me or the common man. Obviously, it is the big guns, the corporates, who are buying and doing it. So just because the process is through the banks, it doesn't mean it is transparent. So this is another PIL which we were forced to file in the Supreme Court, and before the general elections of 2019, we had again filed a petition asking for a stay in the sale of electoral bonds. The Supreme Court was kind enough to give us a hearing, and they also mentioned in that judgment that it is a very serious issue, a very weighty matter. It requires great deliberation. But in the judgment, they said that all the parties which have received funding through the electoral bonds should submit the details in a sealed cover to the Election Commission by 31st May, and that is the end of it. We don't know what the hell happened after that. So this sealed cover thing, which the Supreme Court has started, is another new thing which I don't know where it will lead to. So just before the Bihar elections, we again filed a application saying that the sale should not be made, but there was no hearing to that. So that is as far as the electoral bonds goes. If there are any issues, I can take them on in the question. Then we have filed RTIs pertaining to the governing of the electoral trusts. There are some rules which the Election Commission, or I would say the CBDT and the government have put out. But there are some electoral trusts which were formed prior to the formulation of these rules. So they are not governed by anything. I don't know what they are governed with. So we do file RTIs to obtain information about those electoral trusts. Then another thing which we obtained information was about the Rajya Sabha, the starting of the register of members' interest. This was in 2011 that ADR did this. And since then, we have been writing and approaching the Lok Sabha also to start this, but it has not been done or not have been accepted. So the conflict of interest is, visible in the register of interest, because when you dive into the composition of the various committees which are formed, you will find that there are people with conflict of interest in that. Excuse me. So this is some of the thing. Now the couple of other things which we have just done, two other projects which we have started in which we have filed RTI applications. One is regarding the search and sorry, it's not search, seizures which are made during elections by the election Commission of India. That again runs into thousands of crores. That is cash, liquor, drugs, precious stones and jewels and what have you. So basically, we see in the media, reports that so many lakhs caught in so and so person's car, and so was caught with this thing and that thing. But what happens after that, we don't know. So we are trying to find that out. We have filed this thing. Initially, we haven't got any response, but we are pursuing this matter. And the other thing which we have filed, the second project we've taken on now is because this is in relation to the electoral bonds. When I filed an application asking the Election Commission to please give us the list of the political parties which submitted the details in the sealed cover, we didn't ask who, what, how many, money, etc. Nothing. We just said, please give us a list. So the Election Commission gave us a list. There were, I think, 41 political parties which had submitted the details in a sealed cover to the Election Commission of India. And to our surprise, we found when we went into, you see, the electoral bond, this thing which was put out by the government is a very small 2-3 pages thing only. And the eligibility criteria has been laid down in that the political party which can receive electoral bonds should have had at least 1% of vote share or so and so forth. So those eligibility conditions were not meant by a number of parties. There were some parties which had been formed after the promulgation of the electoral bond scheme. There were a large number of parties which had never contested votes elections. There were some parties which were much below the 1% thing, but they had also got electoral bonds money. So we asked the Election Commission of India, the next step, obviously, who is monitoring this? Who is seeing the eligibility criteria? We filed an RTI with the State Bank of India. We filed with the Election Commission of India. Both washed their hands of it. So we don't know. So this is the type of thing which is going on as far, and this is just one aspect which I have brought out. So these are some of the issues where ADR is, using the RTI. And like I mentioned in the preamble, this is being weakened, the RTI per se, by systematically reducing the, like the appointments of the information commissioners. Their status has been reduced. The people who are being appointed are not proactively dealing with the cases. They are deflecting them, or they are just piling up. If I were to give you the figures, I have them with me in case somebody wants, I can give them later on. But it is a dismal state. That is all I would say as far as the RTI is concerned. So we need to strengthen the RTI. We need the engagement with the political parties, and they have to be forthcoming, they have to be transparent, they have to be accountable to the public. I will finish with this much, Ujjaini ji. Later on, if there are any questions, we can take them on. Thank you.
Thank you, Major General Anil Verma, retired Major General Anil Verma ji, who is the head of ADR, for your overview of how ADR is using right to information for strengthening electoral democracy and bring better transparency. At this point of time, my sincere apology to Dr. Srikumar Mukherjee, who has also joined us at the very beginning, and I forgot to mention his name. He's an eminent politician, former minister, and he belongs to CPI. He is with us from the very beginning. And as the next speaker, may I come to Dr. Srikumar Mukherjee? And as we have already heard from Anil ji, that CPI once in a while took slightly different position on RTI and political parties. And at we're hearing from different corner, and as all of you know, what is your thought on that, Dr. Srikumar Mukherjee? So before I give the floor to Dr. Srikumar Mukherjee, let me formally introduce him. Dr. Srikumar Mukherjee is an eminent politician and a former minister of government of West Bengal during the Left Front government from 1996 to 2011. He belongs to Communist Party of India. He is a doctorate in mathematics from IIT Kharagpur, and of course a very eminent politician. So the floor is yours, Dr. Mukherjee, and you have 10 minutes time. Thank you very much.
The listener. Anyway, matter is over now, and good afternoon to ma'am and all the participants and the listeners also. RTI, in fact, it's Act of 2005, of at the time of UPA government, when the left front parties were the partners of that. We had a common minimum program, and ultimately, even in the manifesto also, we insisted on Congress that this has to be introduced, and it was finally done. But every issue which is surfaced, it has something which is not surfaced. Behind the surfaced issue, there are issues which are not surfaced. I want to mention that, and that will clarify the position of the CPI regarding this matter. You see that it was Indrajit Gupta in 1996. He was the Home Minister of Government of India. He visited Jammu and Kashmir state that time in his turbulent state, when it was in turbulent phase. He visited and met most of the political parties leaders and also many eminent personalities who can make peace or you can bring peace in Jammu and Kashmir. Lot of criticism was there, whom Indrajit Gupta met. But finally, everyone, I'm not going to detail of that discussion, but everyone, all the leaders of the political parties, they asked one question in common. The question was, what is the way out to get relief of police and military harassment if they raise any question against the government? In fact, there is none to listen to them, whom they can approach for their queries. Mr. Indrajit Gupta ensured on behalf of Government of India and requested them to have such an act, RTI, other form, for Jammu and Kashmir state, as they had the power to do it. Even if any act passed by the, implemented by Government of India for all over India, still it had it had to be required an endorsement from Jammu and Kashmir. Article, I want to talk about Article 370, which is abolished now at the moment. But it was Jammu and Kashmir who first introduced this act. And ultimately, they had Right to Information Act in Jammu and Kashmir in 2002 most probably, maybe 2003 also. But they are the only state. Just I quote the Right to Information Act, 3 lines only. Democracy requires an informed citizenry and transparency of information, which are vital to its functioning and also to contain corruption and to hold governments and their instrumentalities accountable to the governed. That is very important line. Very, very important. Now, who can oppose? The unscrupulous and criminals, bad motivated people and groups, and bad politicians can oppose to the intention of the act. I'm very much with the act, but I have some question. The question is whether the political parties come within the purviews of the act or not. That is my question. But at the beginning, I state clearly that there should be total transparency on the functioning of the political parties, their funds, their collections, donations received, and finally expenditure. That should be transparent and come to the limelight. Through what? Through some act or the existing act, whether it can serve the purpose or not. That we look for. But RTI will not serve because clause 2H is very important in this respect of RTI Act. What it states, 2H clarifies the meaning of public authority, and under any circumstances, political parties cannot belong to the class of public authority. And I don't subscribe to that concept. Some people tell that accept it, and things which are highly confidential to your party takes exemptions through clause 8 of RTI Act. Exemption from disclosure of information, where it is stated. I just say no to it, because no disclosure. Everything should be clear and it should come to the people. But whether it is RTI or some other act that has to be brought, or the existing act that to be analyzed. To me, as an individual or representing CPI on the issue, inclusion of the party, my party at least, CPI, in 2H is not acceptable. And simultaneously, I believe in transparency. There should be something check and balance and everything. Now, what people can ask about, what informations they need to have. When the party is formed, they require to furnish some informations. And what are they? There are 12 things. There are 12 things. Name, objectives, right and responsibilities of the members, organs, power and functions of the organs, method of appointment in terms of the office bearers, rules and dispute of resolution and discipline, basics of rules and conduct of the business, meeting, etc., party funds, accounts, constituents, constitution amendments, procedure, merger, split, dissolution. These are the 12 points. Now, these are known to the party members. The outsider has no interest, should not have any interest regarding this matter. And they, if they have, they can go through the constitution of the party, and that's in the website. It's absolutely free for everyone. Now, 2-3 things should come rather. I have my own question. And I am subscribed to the thinking and the concept of Major General Anil Verma. I appreciate his approach. Expenditure by the candidate and party in the election. That's one point, first point. Second, income of the political parties. Third one, criminality and political parties. Criminality and political parties. These are the 3 very important things that should come to the public. So far as the CPI is concerned, we are not collecting any money from the corporate sectors. This is very clear. And if you go through our agenda also, you will find that we are not collecting any money. I'm not mentioning the big corporates who approached us in the last election to give money. We just simply flatly refused. We are submitting annual reports to Election Commission regularly in favor to make it very much public. Under Section 29C of RPA, it is mandatory to submit a list of donations they received of over 20,000 in Form 24A. These are there. Now the question is that those candidates who are contesting in the election, they are also through the epidemic that telling how much the expenditure they have incurred, Number one. Number two, how much money they have got from the political parties of the donation. These are very clear. Not only that, through your definitely a fight, I appreciate you, that on 13th February 2020, Supreme Court passed a judgment that parties are required to publish reasons for nominating someone who has a criminal background. I appreciate it. But there is again one question, that lot of cases are there against the left parties, at least, even to me also. This Trinamool Congress gave me a case. They tried to kill me, they shot me, and ultimately I was not died, I was not killed. But they gave me a case that I made all bad things, criminal activities I had. Ultimately, the case is dismissed. But in the last election, 2016, when I contested, I had to report it. And people would have to think that, could think that I'm also a criminal. But that's a problem. That's a problem. And so far, as the bond is concerned, that is very important thing Major General put it, and at the beginning only. I am subscribing with you. It is not that what you mentioned, that other political parties may be waiting for the time to come when they will be receiving. It's not such. It's not at all so. I tell you that we are against it, absolutely against it. I am with you. My party is with you. Because this bond is for the ruling party, not only ruling party, the party, big parties, who control the total power, either from the opposition or from the ruling side. Electoral bond is a dangerous one. It's a dangerous one. I appreciate CPIM, ADR, and common causes. They have gone to the Supreme Court. That is very appreciable one. Very appreciable one. Affidavit files by the candidates are overlooked by the Election Commission. What I want to mention that the normal things, what is their existing rule, act, that can prevent all these corruptions. See, Election Commission is there, very powerful organization. They simply ignore many things. Affidavit filed by Mr. Narendra Modi, our Honorable Prime Minister. 3 times he had submitted affidavit and 3 different things. Once married, once not married, once married but wife left. All these things he mentioned. This is one. He had the BJP leader, Mr. Dilip Ghosh. He mentioned about educational qualification. I don't know. And ultimately, it is proved that education qualification is not proper. Thirdly, the Trinamool Congress Supremo, Madam Mamata Banerjee, he mentioned that he sees a doctorate. Now she is not doctorate. Now his nephew, Abhishek Banerjee, he has filed a different one. Now he is a MBA, but he is not so MBA. Election Commission had the full right to cancel their nomination. They haven't done. In fact, if you are a ruling party member, you are exempted from anything. If you are not so this will be done. Actually, why we opposed? We opposed to include ourselves within 2H. The reason is that all the data that we will be submitting, that will be used by the ruling party for their favor. That is not acceptable. We want to be very transparent. Yes, I'm concluding. Yeah. I'm concluding. So ultimately, I tell that strengthening of Election Commission, IT department, the Enforcement Directorate, the CBI, if they function properly, nothing is required, because everything will be very transparent. And I am with the thought, I am with your caption of today's discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Srikumar Mukherjee, for your for illustrating the position of CPI. And as I can understand, you are very much with right to information, but you and your party is not very much keen to be part of to come under right to information, and you have mentioned your reasons for that. Let us hear from others. We have with us Professor Omprakash Mishra. And I mean, I would like to go to Professor Omprakash Mishra as the next speaker. Let me introduce Professor Mishra. But before doing that, let me just briefly announce, as I have already introduced Shri Partha Ghosh from BJP, he has joined us and he is with us. So later on, we will come to him as well. So Professor Om Prakash Mishra is the Professor of International Relations, Jadavpur University, Kolkata. Professor Mishra is the Member Secretary at the Global India Foundation. He is the founder coordinator of the Center for Refugee Studies. He is also the former Pro Vice Chancellor, Indira Gandhi National Open University, and former member, National Security Advisory Board, Government of India. We all know he has a political affiliation also with the ruling party in West Bengal, but today in this program, he is not representing any particular political party. So now, Professor Mishra, floor is yours. You have 10 minutes, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Ujjwani Halim. I very intently listened to Major General Verma's elucidation of the objective of today's discussion and the pathways that ADR and sister organizations they have undertaken over the course of the last about more than a decade, so to speak. Also had listened to the representative of the CPI. Well, after listening to Dr. Mukherjee of the CPI, the first question that came to my mind is that, say, CPI or Trinamool Congress or BJP or BSP, whatever political party, are they public authorities? Well, actually, they are not. They wish to be public authorities. As per the definition of public authorities in the RTI, they wish to be political authorities. As a government authority, a public authority, they are aspiring for that. Political parties aspire for that. We should always try to look at something from the beginning. What is the definition of a political party? Political parties basically they are organization of volunteers. Political party members are not employees. Now I have been a political activist almost 38 years from the time that I was 18, 19-year old. Every day, all these 38 years, and especially after I have joined a job, I spend almost 10 to 15% of my earning for political activities. And that is true of most of the political activists across political parties. And there is a very, very valid distinction between all those who misuse their position and indulge and involve themselves in unlawful activities, and there is a general tendency to equate everybody. That is not correct, and that is a very incorrect reading of political parties. Secondly, I think this is also important that we are discussing more transparency, more information from political parties at a point of time in history when least information is now available in the public domain. The biggest threat that we are facing, the pandemic, and the many different measures related to addressing the challenge, included also a fund started and by government, and which is named PM Cares Fund. And if the PM Cares Fund, which is in the name of the Prime Minister, if that fund is not answerable under the RTI, or the details cannot be accessed or is not available, then it is in fact a moot question whether, if at all, any information that is shared by the political parties on a voluntary basis would not also be misused. Now, who has brought in the RTI? Is the Parliament of India, isn't it? Is the government of the day in 2005. They brought in the act. Now, who can make amends to the act? It is the parliament only. So, the civil society, of course, they can attempt to persuade the government of the day to do the needful in this regard. But so far as my understanding goes, political parties cannot be considered to be public authorities just because they are also given some funding in an indirect way. Now, AGR, or for that matter, other organization, they might like to compute all the expenses that the government spends on, say, the television program for the political parties, especially during the election time. Or for that matter, they can also try to find out the many different ways by which government directly or indirectly is spending money. That way, government spends money on almost anything and everything in this country. State government, central governments, and so on. That itself would not necessarily make these individuals, or for that matter, the organizations as public authorities. Political parties membership can be accepted, membership can be relinquished. It is not even necessary for the political parties, so to speak, to maintain a register of all the members. It is physically it might be impossible. I'm talking of big political parties here, but then this is also true of the small political parties. Now, the political party, which may be perhaps small now, like the CPI, but then they would like to aspire to be the big political parties, and so therefore, trying to obtain information from political parties on subject areas which has nothing much to do with the public interest is not correct. Political parties, in that sense, they are legal entities only in relationship to their participation in election and their conduct during the election within the context of the election commission, jurisdiction, or the Representation of People's Act, and yet other acts and so on. So just by saying that somebody is getting some direct or indirect money, that is not money, that is actually a facilitation. Our constitutional democracy actually is facilitated by the involvement of political parties. Political parties are actually the hyphen that is joining the dots in the constitution. And so, therefore, my considered view on this subject, for long, in fact, has been that the political parties cannot be considered to be a legal authority. It is like, asking, it's like nota. I am a great supporter of nota, but what is the point of nota for people who are aged between, say, 18 to 25? Because at least you like yourself, if you are more than 25 years of age, you can contest. So therefore, those who are between 18 to 25, say one can understand nota. But then for all those who are above 25, they can very well put themselves as a candidate. This is an analogy. This is not a very well considered position. But point is that why do we need all the information that we are seeking from the political parties? Now we do it, and I admire Admiral Verma's articulation, especially with regard to the funding. And just see the biggest fraud in the name of electoral reform has come about more recently. And Major General he detailed out about this so-called scheme, the electoral bonds and what has that resulted in, and so on and so forth. So therefore, unless and until Parliament decides to amend the RTI Act to bring in what Parliament considers to be public authorities, well, we can always one can keep on arguing about it, but then I don't think that that is going to sound very convincing. There is yet another point that I would like to mention, and then I will conclude, and that is when we have the topic, the RTI and the role of political parties. What about the excellent role that the political parties can play in educating people and filing in RTIs through their members, RTI applications, and so on? And many of the political parties are doing it constantly. Many of the activists who are doing it, they belong to political parties. So therefore, when we are talking of the role of political parties, this particular aspect, because it's the political parties, and as and when they have been in government, and a necessary consensus has emerged and a parliamentary majority has been obtained, that is how and why the RTI could come about. And then we can see very well that how RTI is now being sought to be diluted, restricted. A narrow interpretation is provided for all that which was already obtainable. So there is a very big difference that already whatever was obtainable is now no longer possible to obtain it, and that is quite a serious situation. And finally, I would like to conclude that I welcome this course discussion, and of course, I suppose over a period of time this can continue to get further strengthened in regard to strengthening of the political forces who are going to work for transparency, not with regard to political forces which actually would like to dilute or even perhaps possibly kill RTI. So ultimately, it has to be a political decision. That political decision has to be through the amendment of the RTI Act, or maybe an enactment of a new different RTI Act, in which the political parties certain aspects of responsibilities possibly can be included, but certainly that would not make the political parties, especially so far as their functioning is concerned, so far as the association of the members with their own political party is concerned, so far as the decision making is concerned, and so on. In the same way, you see, a collegium decision of the Supreme Court, they cannot come under the RTI purview, right? And similarly, say, a discussion, deliberation of the political parties. Most of the political party offices, they even do not have a typewriter or a computer. 95% of the political party offices, except for the BJP in this country, no, they even don't have a computer or stationery. Most of them, they even do not have an office as such. So therefore, to consider them as public authorities, I think that will be actually diluting the concept, the sanctity, the significance, and the legality behind the notion of public authority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, Professor Omprakash Mishra, for your valued opinion. And as I have understood, I mean, the point that you are actually, that the point that I have noted from your deliberation, that you said Parliament should try to define what is public authority, and how political parties can come under the purview of public authority. You are also in favor of right to information, and you are talking about making political party cadres aware of right to information and encourage them to file applications through right to information. But again, just like our previous speaker, Dr. Mukherjee, you are also not very comfortable with the political parties coming under right to information at this point of time. So thank you very much. As looking at the time constraint, I would like to move on to the next speaker. We have Sri Manoj Bhattacharya with us. he is also quite known to ADR. He's a very eminent political personality. He is the All India General Secretary of RSP. So I would like to hear from him his valued opinion on this issue, and what Professor Omprakash Mishra said at the end. It's a lot about political will. So, sir, what is your opinion on this? So, floor is yours, Sri Manoj Bhattacharya.
both to the listeners and as well as the panelists. It's difficult to speak after two professors, in fact, who have deliberated on the subject. I would like to say that I have been very closely associated, along with many others, particularly I remember Aruna Roy, who was virtually who spearheaded the movement for adopting this RTI in the parliament on 15th of June 2005. I very fondly remember because I was also a part of that movement, being a parliamentarian at that time. Now I know that after this RTI, or the right to information, is a component of democratic functioning. It's a fundamental right as enunciated in our constitution. It comes within the ambit of Article 19. And what I'd say that democracy can flourish or can function only when eternal vigilance is there. And eternal vigilance cannot be there unless we have the information, proper information about the governmental function. We are discussing about the function of the political parties. In fact, now we are living in a country, unfortunately, I must accept. I'm heading this Revolutionary Socialist Party, a very small political party, political outfit, for almost a year after the demise of our earlier General Secretary. I have not, and for this long time, 6, 7, 8 months, the entire nation is suffering from pandemic. Somebody has referred to pandemic also, the pandemic situation, what we are suffering very seriously. And it's very difficult for us to conduct the normal functioning of the political party that way, the smaller political parties particularly, because we don't have the amenities to function. Now the question is, I do have some basic questions that are, and thank you very much, Major General Anil Verma. You have rightly pointed out some very important concerns of yours in particular. But I'll say that the problem is somewhere else. The problem is in RTI, the political parties right from the beginning, particularly after the amendment in 2013, the RTI is the political parties are not within the purview of the public authorities. It's not considered as a public authority. However, I'm not averse to the opinion of yours. Not in any way I'm averse to the opinion of yours, but as Dr. Srikumar Mukherjee has rightly pointed out, sometimes we are, particularly we the leftist political parties, sometimes we are discriminated, and some peculiarly frivolous charges are framed against us, and the authority who are running the governments in both state and the center, they are so vindictive. With a malafide intention, they used to tarnish our image, or they try to dissuade us from contesting the elections. And I know that in the elections for a very long time, we have been shouting shouting helplessly that the amount of corruption that is practiced during the elections by the bigger parties, particularly I'll say the parties which have ruled the country or the state of West Bengal, I know very well, that they have been collecting money from different sources, some fictitious sources as well, and they are not prepared to give any return for that, and that is influencing the governance of these parties when they are in power, and that is a very difficult situation that is for us. Major General Verma, you have also mentioned about the electoral bonds. We are very much opposed to the electoral bonds. Electoral bonds is something highly corruptible, or is a measure of corruption through the electoral bonds. And Dr. Mukherjee and Dr. Omprakash Mishra, they have also mentioned that the money will be collected by, in the name of pandemic, in the name of combating the pandemic situation, money will be collected by the political parties through the PM cares. And that is going to be a dangerous situation, because more than 6,500 crores of rupees. It's not a matter of, we as a political party, we cannot think of that, or we cannot think even 100 crores of rupees. We somehow subsist on very small donations from our friends, from our close people, and from the party members that we collect on regular basis, very small donations that we collect, and we somehow survive. But the problem is, I'll raise this question, that I've been harping on this since a very long time. The Election Commission itself is an authority, in fact, is a very important authority. I have every admiration for them. But they are not in a position to function properly because they don't have any infrastructure insofar as workforce complement is concerned. They have whatever they have everything in the Nirvachan Sadan in Delhi. They don't have any infrastructure in the states. So for that, they have to depend on the state governments, and let the state governments make use of the Election Commission by this means or some means or other. I cannot exactly say that what are the means that they make use of the election commissions, but in fact, many truths are being suppressed, many truths are being distorted, and we are in a very difficult situation. This is one, and I have been shouting for this for a very long time. The election commission should look into this, that they do have their own infrastructure, particularly workforce complement, particularly employees. The employees, the structural organization, they don't have. When they come to West Bengal for conducting election, the West Bengal government has to supply them with the employees, or they will summon the services of those government employees who might be motivated even for some reason or other. So the election commission cannot function as an independent and transparent manner in absence of their own organizational structure. And naturally, many information that we pass on to election commission not recorded properly, and those they do not act properly. This is my allegation against the election commission, because I very sad it is. I have been elected by the central committee of ours as a general secretary of this party to head this party in way back in 2019 November. I remember the date. Perhaps it is 26th of November or 25th of November. I have given several reminders to the election commission on this in this matter. Even up till date, the letters are coming in the name of some general secretary, in the name of our general secretary who has relinquished his position some 2 years back. They have not corrected, they have not updated the information. So when they cannot update the information about this position of the general secretary, even though it has been reminded, the reminders have been sent to them time and again, they cannot maintain all the information that is sent by either by emails or by even post. They do not record it because they don't have the infrastructure. The employees, the number of employees that they employ is very, very meager. That is a problem. One. Two, at the present dispensation of the rule in this country, well, I'm sorry to say that people cannot, this has been, the RTI has been very badly diluted. And the people are not, the dilution means, I'll say the CIC, the position of the CIC has been diluted. The CIC has been made a position as a government employee, as an employee who will be directly or indirectly reporting to the Prime Minister of this country. This is not acceptable. The RTI, the very, very intention or very objective of the RTI was to use this as a tool to inform the people the costs or the activities of the government authorities, government functions, or public authorities as such. And that has been diluted. Now the CIC, if the CIC has to toe the line of the government, the directions of the government, then the CIC cannot function. One. Two, the people, whoever raises questions in the RTI to the CIC, they are being annihilated. Number of persons have been annihilated. I remember one person in West Bengal in 2016 when one from Raiganj or from North Dinajpur, Dr. Srikumar Mukherjee's district, one Mr. Tayuddin, he has been killed.
We have some net issue.
That was within the right to information. And for that matter, he has been threatened. The threatening, the intimidation is very, very common in West Bengal in particular, I'll say, and also in India. The journalists, I'm sorry to say that journalists are being killed. Journalists are being abducted. Journalists are being framed in many cases. What happened to this Siddiq Kappan? I'll raise his voice. I raise my voice. He intended to go to cover the Hathras unfortunate episode that has taken place in Hathras and Dalit family. And for that matter, he has been booked by UAPA. He is booked by, framed, the charges have been framed under UAPA. And he will have to languish in the jail for a very long time. I do not know what is happening. What has happened to this Stan Swami? The father Stan Swami, he has worked for the people, for the common people, no political party, no amount of, no relation to any corruption. Such a person who has acted on behalf of the Adivasis, on behalf of the poor people, the poverty-stricken people who are being robbed, who are being exploited. This gentleman has been booked in RTI, in UPA, and he is languishing in the Taloja jail. When he is a patient of, he is 83 years old and a patient of Parkinsonism, he sought a simple sipper or a straw so that he can drink water. Now the Supreme Court has acted very fast in case of Arnab Goswami, who is, we term him as the Goebbels of India today, and an incarnation of Goebbels, I'd say. He might be, he doesn't have the qualities even of Dr. Goebbels, Joseph Goebbels, the infamous minister of, or the last Führer of Germany, who committed suicide on 1st of May 1945. But his case has been heard so promptly, and he has been released on bail, whereas Tan Sami has sought a simple straw or a sipper so that he can drink water without the help of anybody else. That has not been heard, and the court has not given any direction even now. So the courts are also functioning. It appears sometimes that many courts are functioning as per the will of the government of India. And the government of India, they are not caring, they don't have any iota of shame even to rule this country in a democratic manner. When the democracy is in peril, when the democratic activities or the democratic rights are being curtailed, demolished, distorted, and dispensed with, then the question of political parties, particularly smaller political parties, Verma-ji, you can ask several questions about the smaller political parties or who do not have any time, who has not been a part of the central government at any time. You can ask the questions to them, and they will also reply you. They will be obliged to reply you. But unfortunately, the bigger parties, what has happened to the electoral bond? Electoral bond, BJP is a main beneficiary, Bharatiya Janata Party is the main beneficiary. And from where they have collected the money, from which corporate they have collected the money, nobody knows. Nobody knows, nobody is authorized to know about the PM cares. PM cares, who can give the guarantee to us that a fund collected in the name of PM cares, the fund donated by many, even including many corporates, that fund is not being utilized by the Bharatiya Janata Party for their own purpose, by the different wings of the RSS for their own purpose, for propagating the venom of communalism, fundamentalism. And this is, I am telling you, Verma-ji, kindly bear with me, that the country is heading towards a fascistic rule. And this cannot be, nothing, no rights we shall have. All the acts what have been passed in the past, those will be distorted, those will be dispensed with, and we shall be nowhere. So my submission, very humble, with all humility I'll submit, that is a question of humanity. In fact, the question of human rights are being challenged now. The question of Dalit rights are being challenged now. The question of minority rights are being challenged now. And in these circumstances, perhaps ADR They are doing a very, very commendable job. Election watch, they are doing a very, very commendable job. I always appreciate and I always try to cooperate with you all. But my question is whether you are also in a position to at least address, theoretically you address. I don't say that you are the activists, political activists, as we are. We are unfortunately exposed to a political situation when we know that what is the risk that we are running, what is the risk that we might be facing in the days to come. It's a very, very difficult situation. But I'll say that ADR or the organizations, the democratic organizations, which are there for democratic reforms, what reforms we can make once the democracy is demolished, once the democracy is perished, the democratic rights are taken away. When the central government refused to answer anything, refused to answer simply, and the RTI has been amended accordingly in the month of, perhaps in the month of November 2019, so that they do not have to answer any question what is not comfortable, where they are not comfortable. They are behaving like Mr. Trump, Donald Trump, who has learned his lesson. Perhaps he has learned his lesson on 3rd of November in America. Whatever Trump says, the lies, the blatant lies. And the government of India is also pursuing the same line for since 2014. Lies and blatant lies. What has happened if we ask the question? We shall not be replied. Rather, we shall be intimidated, we shall be attacked, and we shall be in a very, very bad condition. That is what has happened. What is the benefit of the demonetization? Nobody can say. It's only the Prime Minister will say, and he will say everything he will say unilaterally. He will not respond to the queries made by the press, by the common people, by the politicians, even in the parliament. No question was allowed in the last session. The pandemic,
Sir,
the government.
if you could conclude in 1 minute, and if you could also tell us a little bit more about what is your position of political parties coming under right to information.
Yes, Dr. Halim, I'll say that I am not averse to the idea of bringing the political parties under the right to information. I'm not at all averse to that. But yes, there's a problem. What Omprakash Mishra has rightly said, that many political parties do not have a computer. We do not have a computer. We do not have the employees like that. So it's difficult. Sometimes it's practically difficult for us to comply with all the requirements as being enunciated by Anil Verma. But I'm not averse to. Practically, I'm not averse to, but I am averse to one thing that's very serious, that I am averse to the curtailment of the democratic rights for what we stand for, what this party was formed. I'm averse to that. That's all. Thank you so much, all of you. And thank you very much for bearing with me. And thanks, Ujjaini Halim, and Anil Verma. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Manoj sir. Please stay with us because we will have a question answer session, and this request is for all the panelists. And of course, we see there is a much bigger picture to all these questions which we are discussing here. We have two panelists left with us. We have with us Shri Asit Mitra ji and Shri Partha Ghosh ji. So I would say. Shri Partha Ghosh, sir, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
You are here. Sir, if you don't mind, I mean, I think a lot of questions are actually there, which probably you have to take an answer, or if you like to.
Yes.
So let us first hear from Shri Asit Mitra, sir, and then I will come to you. And after this 10 minutes each deliberation, we will go into question answer session. And there, Anil sir will also tell us a little bit more about the party funding, corporate funding, and we can take up from there some more question answers. So let me introduce Shri Asit Mitra. Shri Asit Mitra is a veteran politician and member of Legislative Assembly, and he is a very senior member of Indian National Congress. So we are very pleased to have Shri Asit Mitra sir today with us, and I would like to invite him to speak now. So the floor is yours, Shri Asit Mitra.
Anil Verma and others. Actually, I do not want to take much of your time because my friends, they have taken much more time of the period, and I am to go to elsewhere because of my previous activity, my next activities. I was told that I would be promoted in two or three, but second or third position. But excuse me that I have waited for a long time, and I am to go to the next program, to attend the next programs. Whatever it may be, now I come to the point that the actually the right to information and the functions of political parties, etc. Everybody, starting from Mishra, everybody has told, and last of all, Manoj, they have told everything. But one thing I want to say, I am a member of the oldest political party in India and other countries also. And we have worked from our student life. When I was the member of chapter position, the student wing of Indian National Congress, and then I once I became the General Secretary of National Students Union of India, of which Madam Indira Gandhi was the advisory chairman of the advisory body. So I have had much more experience for my party. My party has got a tremendous experience in securing money, in getting other things so that they can fight for the election or for the development of our organization. And so far my knowledge goes, I have seen that in so many times, we have not even got a single prize from our party because of the poverty of the party. And that is the main question. But still now, party is going on. And I think regarding Anil Verma ji told particularly two things, that is electoral bond and income tax, etc. I cannot tell you these things in a broad way, but so far my knowledge goes, I know that there were no problems in these matters because nobody has taken any charge of Indian National Congress. That Indian National Congress has made these wrong things, and for that reason our party is blamed. I have so far we know that we are also to pay the when our membership, at the time of our membership, we have to pay money for that membership, and later on when I became the member of the assembly for 4 times, but we have to pay also to build up our party and to run the party. It is also in case of MPs, it is also in the case of MPs of Parliament and MPs of Rajya Sabha, everything. So I think that our party is a party which fought in the freedom struggle time. So at that time, our party was born in 1885, and from there, in the year of 1947, we got freedom. But before, in this time, we have not been paid by big merchants, big rich persons. We have not been paid. So our party was involved in freedom struggle, and they got money from the people, and they continued their party in that way. So many persons have told so many things, but nobody blamed about, nobody told about that how the party was going on at that time and how Indian National Congress fought to bring Indian independence. Whatever it may be, whether in case of Mahatma Gandhi or in case of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru or in case of Motilal Nehru or in case of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad or in case of any other leader who have rendered their lives, who have rendered their everything for to bring the party in our country. Therefore, I would like to say that now our party may lose in some states. Our party is not in power in parliament, and now BJP or Narendra Modi, he has captured the power. My predecessor, Manoj has told how now the BJP is earning money, how they are running from this time to that time, how they are expending money, and not only that, they are also in a mood to win the election, whether in Assam, whether in Bihar, whether in Karnataka, whether in Madhya Pradesh. What they are doing now? In Madhya Pradesh, Congress government was there. Congress government was there. What they have done? They have purchased, they have convinced, and in every way they have purchased our MLA, and they got the scope to oust Congress legislative party from the power, and they came to rule in MP. And so, like this way, they did in Karnataka, they did in Bihar, and they will do much more things. Now they are threatening us that they will do it in West Bengal. What they are going to do it in West Bengal? How they will fight? Now they are capturing people, they are capturing with different political party leaders to win the election, whatever it may be. Now, to conclude my address, whatever it may be, that our party or any other political party, or it may be Communist Party of India, and may it be CPIM, maybe ISP, Revolutionary Socialist Party, or whatever it may be, I have come to know that these parties are trying their level best to earn money and to expend for their livelihood, and I mean the livelihood of the party, and to fight in the election and other things. One thing I want to say, Mr. Verma ji said that all these things should be stopped. Yes, all these things should be stopped. All corruption should be stopped. What I want to know, why these things are not being done? How many people were arrested at the time of election? Nobody. We have not seen. When we are in university, when we are in colleges, when we are in our organizational works, we have not seen that a single party or a single person is arrested for the use of this corrupted practice. Therefore, still now, right to information, this idea should be used to bring the party in order, and not only that, to bring all political parties to come to order and to work in the finest way, so that no corruption can happen. At the same time, we are now in West Bengal, we are seeing that BJP is telling that we are going to win the election. We are going to win the election, and who will be the chief minister, who will be the other ministers, they are now announcing it. Actually, what is being happened now? they are going to use money, they are going to use so many things which can help other political party cadres and leaders to come to their own land. So therefore, I do not want to take much more of your time. I want to say that this type of ideas, this type of discussion should take place, and I would like to request once again, I would like to request Ujjayini IMG, who is very much known to me, that you should take this sort of discussions. You should arrange it, and so that in our state, much more political party leaders, they will be they will try to build their party in an honest way and in the election. Thank you all. I think we will
Thank,
see it again. But madam, just one thing.
Sure.
I am sorry that I cannot stay much more now because I have to go to a doctor. I told Manoj that I am become ill, and so I am going to a doctor's dispensary, and for that reason I cannot attend your next program.
thank you, Asit Mitra sir, and I wish you speedy recovery. And thank you for attending this webinar despite your ill health. Uh, we are now at the end of our panel discussion, and we have our last speaker in the first round of our panel discussion. We have Sri Partha Ghosh with us, and as after, I mean, we have heard from all our previous speakers the various aspects of right to information and role of political parties, how they look at it. So let me introduce Sri Partha Ghosh. He is the convener, BJP Legal Cell, and he is an advocate at Kolkata High Court. So I welcome Sri Partha Ghosh, and the floor is yours, sir. You have 10 minutes to share your valued opinion with us.
Am I audible, madam?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Yes, yes. Actually, thank you very much, this organization, Mr. Verma and Madam, you also. That only thing I will say about the act for a few minutes, because a lot of things has already been covered by the other speakers. You know, this act has been introduced in the year 2005 to give justice of the people, so that the people of the country can have the access of the document and information and all other things, those who are lying with the public authorities. Now, the public authorities has also been defined in many judgments of the High Court as well as the Supreme Court. That is Article 12, the Article 12 of the Article Constitution of India, where what is the state authority has been defined, and the state authorities are mainly the public authorities, and they are the answerable, and they are the persons those who are can give the information to the people. And we know under Section 6 of the Act, we can make the application before the state or central public information officer, wherein they are under obligation to provide the information within a period of 1 month. And if they fail within a period of 1 month to provide the information, after that there is a provision of appeal, first appeal, within 30 days from the date of refusal or date of denial. We can file the appeal before the appellate authority within 1 month. And after that, if we also, there is another provision of second appeal under section 19, that if the first appeal will fail, and if we do not get the information from the first appellate authority, we can also file the second appeal. And there is also another provision for penalty of rupees 250 per day, that is up to which is up to maximum 25,000. We can also avail that provision as well. Under the Act, we know that this Act have the various provision and the rules made thereunder, and this is a codified law made by the Parliament. Subsequently, there is some amendments time to time. And two things here we have to answer here because two speakers, Srikumar sir and Omprakash sir and Manoj Bhattacharya sir made. That is, Prime Minister's qualification first matter in Srikumar Mukherjee has told, and the Dilip Ghosh qualifications, that there is a lot of qualifications they have time to time made before the election commission. So you know the fact that there was a public interest litigations in the matter of Dilip Ghosh that has been failed. So there is no question of any ambiguity in the question of the educational qualification issue of Mr. Dilip Ghosh. In respect of the Prime Minister, there is a lot of questions, but nobody has raised this question up to the court. And if it is go up to the court, then matter may be clear. And in respect of the PM care, we also know that there is a matter before the Supreme Court which has been dismissed by the Honorable Supreme Court regarding the PM care issue. So that question has been now as it addressed. We cannot now ask the question. So now I have nothing to say more, and there is a question answer session. So this is my.
Sir, if you could say something about BJP's position on right to information and particularly political parties coming under right to information. What do you think? Whether political parties should come under right to information?
No, initially the political parties were not purview under the Right to Information Act, but by virtue of the order passed by the CIC, the political parties were sometime for few days, not sometime, for few days it was allowed for under the purview of this act. But ultimately the Supreme Court overruled that decision, and Supreme Court has said that political parties are not the public authorities, so they are not under the purview of the Right to Information Act. Because unless and until the public authorities that is defined under Article 12 of the Constitution of India, the public authorities, the political parties are not under obligations to answer the question or answer the information sought for by the people.
So, sir, in terms of intention, what do you think? I mean, BJP is one of the biggest party in India now, ruling at the center. In terms of intention, in terms of transparency, etc., don't you think that political parties should be made more accountable?
Unless and until accountability is a main thing in our country, but unless and until it is come under the definition of public authority discharging the public function, we cannot say that the political parties will be answerable or be guided by the act. So
Okay,
first of all, we have to bring the political parties under the definition of public authorities. Then we can go into that question. No?
Okay, thank you so much, sir, Partha Ghosh. And I think this point has been raised also before, that the parliament must define public authority. And some of the speakers also talked about strengthening Election Commission of India. So now, as the first round is over, we are moving on to the question answer session. And at the beginning of the question answer session, retired Major General Anil Verma, head of ADR, will tell us a little bit about the total corporate donations given to national parties during the year 12-13 to 18-19. So over to Sir Anil. Anilji, please, floor is yours.
If the slide could kindly be shown by Nandini. Yeah. So this is basically in response to, I think, Dr. Srikumar made this point. I just wanted to highlight the fact that you can see how much of the corporate donations have been received. So CPI is at the bottom. If you see what he rightly said, 2018-19, they have not received any funds through the corporate donations, but overall over the last few years, they have received 22 lakhs. Though it is a very small amount if you compare it to the other parties. I just wish to highlight this fact that it is an incorrect statement to say that we do not receive funds from, everybody receives. Okay, this slide can be removed, please. Thank you. The other issue I wanted to highlight was one was that Mr. Manoj brought out the fact that small parties do not have the wherewithal to come under the RTI, don't have a computer and all that. So just to go to the background, the demand which was made initially to the CIC was for the national parties to come under the RTI. And the third issue which I want to highlight here is that I would request that if the CIC's judgment of 2013 can be seen, wherein very clearly the rationale was given as to why the political parties should come under the RTI and why they are deemed public authorities. I would also like to request Mr. Partha Ghosh to kindly share the judgment which he just mentioned, wherein the Supreme Court has overruled the fact that political parties are not public authorities, because I am not aware of that. Our PIL is still pending with the Supreme Court, and we have not had a hearing from
I'll
2017,
suppress.
as I had mentioned earlier. And yeah, kindly give that thing. So the other issue is very clear. I mean, one, of course, Ujjaini ji, I am in the unenviable position of being pitted against 5 politicians, 3 active and 2 academicians now who have been earlier this thing. Notwithstanding that, I want to bring out 2 things. One is, it is very clear from the statements of all the politicians and the speakers and the academicians that they do not want the political parties to come under the RTI Act. So now the other thing is, like I mentioned, the CIC is a quasi-judicial authority. Once it has given a judgment, or whatever you call it, an order, they have to contest it. Not a single party has contested it in the High Court. Why haven't they taken that step? I want to ask.
Sir,
Anybody
please
can answer?
continue.
I couldn't listen to you, Major General
He is
Verma.
muted.
Will you repeat your question once more?
The
My
last question,
question
sir.
is, yeah, my question was that all the political parties are saying that they should not come under the RTI Act and have not implemented the order of the CIC, which was given out in June 2013. So if you do not want to implement that, why haven't you gone to the High Court to challenge that order? You can't just let it hang in the air.
Oh, well,
To
if
us,
I
it
I
is
think there
very
is some
clear.
audio issue.
well, I think it is non-operational. Had it been operational, then the executive has to execute it. Any particular order, judgment has to be executed, and it will be executed by the executive arm of the government. And since it is not been executed, there is no obligation on the part of the political parties to comply, because behind every order there has to be some form of retribution in terms of what consequences will there be. Since there is no consequence of this, so basically this itself comes brings in the question of the authority that has passed that order, and that order is not being formalized in terms of action by the government.
Dr. Mukherjee, you were saying something?
I do not have legal background.
Yes, I was telling about that Major General Verma told about that we received the smallest amount. Even for that, within the party we discussed, we wanted to return it, and ultimately they didn't accept. So that's a meager amount that is left with our party. That is a problem, but we disclose the corporate sectors them who donated that meager amount. That is our transparency.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
He is muted. Mr. Manoj.
Manoj sir, please unmute Nandini. Yes, please.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
My question is that left parties, Anilji, you will certainly appreciate that none of the left parties ever has been implicated or has been accused for getting some fund from fictitious sources. We have not been, and it's not only a question of the party like mine, RSP, it's a question of the left parties as a whole. I can vouch for that we have not been ever accused. One thing is there, Dr. Omprakash Mishra is an eminent professor of political science, international relations. He will certainly appreciate that it's a fact that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And today, in the center of the country, the government what is being run by the BJP, it is a corrupt government, and they are doing everything and anything, or anything and everything, as per their desire, because manipulation is a common practice, as it is practiced in West Bengal by the ruling party as on today. The corruption is so high and corruption is so complete that I cannot simply describe it in small words. It's a very difficult situation. So therefore, what is my submission to the ADR and election watch, that you should concentrate on certain particular political parties. You should also join us. We are trying to unearth whatever is taking place in those political parties, how they are corrupt and how they are spreading corruption as a value, as a noble value in this society of ours. And I'm telling you, my apprehension is very simple. That once the core of the social thinking is polluted like this, it's been polluted over a period of time. If it continues to be polluted like this, the country will be nowhere. The country without the values, without the value base, without the democratic values, the country will be nowhere. Once it is polluted this way, the way it is being polluted today. Thank you very much, Anil. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Retd.
I
May I?
think we have lost him.
Dr.
Yes,
Mukherjee
please.
wants-
Dr. Mukherjee, please.
Okay.
Actually, what I told that political parties do not come within the purview of 2H or the right to information. But I am not opposing if there be such formula so that all these political parties be very transparent before the people. Otherwise, the whole democracy one day, the youth will not feel like participating in this democratic process. Ultimately, the India will be one ruled party and we will be in a crisis. The democracy, the total democracy, in India, that will lost its confidence and that people will lost its confidence also. That is the thing. I'm with you. I'm with your
May I
fight.
say one thing?
May I?
May I say one thing?
Yeah, Mr. Ghosh, please.
Yes, I will
I
answer
think-
what Mr. Manoj sir said. He has said one dialogue of Lord Acton. He said absolutely the absolute power which will corrupt absolutely. It will absolutely also apply to their political parties as well who are in the power in West Bengal more than 30 years. So this will also apply to them as well.
Okay, I think Ujjani ji, where are you? I think we can take questions from the listeners and viewers now.
Political party.
Okay, I'll answer this the question from Katyani ji. As I was mentioning, this judgment of the CIC of June 2013 said that that the political parties are deemed public authority. So, Mr. Partha Ghosh, who is the BJP
Yes.
spokesperson, he has mentioned that this has been overruled by the Supreme Court in some judgment, which I am not aware of. But this, what you have mentioned, is the rationale given in the CIC judgment also. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I will readily, that judgment is not available to me, but I will supply to you later on. But
Yeah.
if that be so, that the judgment is still date executable, then under the act there is a provision to execute and held the political parties responsible for non-implementation of the order. So had it been the case that the judgment is still in force, then the complainant can ask the CIC to execute the same under the act. So possibly
Mr.
there is a no such
Mr.
existence of the order. That's why there is a no execution of the order.
Mr. Ghosh, as I mentioned earlier, we had again filed a appeal with the CIC, and in 2015, he again said that the 2013 judgment is valid and in force. Now, I don't know about the part of the execution which one gentleman was saying. I'm not a legal expert, so we will have to check on that. But as I said, our PIL last hearing was in October 17. After that, we haven't had any hearing in the Supreme Court.
Sorry, sir, you got disconnected for a while.
Yeah,
We have few
I took over in
questions.
your absence. Yeah.
We have few questions here. Right now on my screen, I have a question from Kathyani Kamraj. So she's asking, a political party can be considered a public authority under the RTI Act if it receives significant subsidies from the government in terms of cheap land for their offices, free or subsidized public broadcast time, etc. Is it not? So this is basically a comment come question, and this can be
Ujjwal ji,
taken up.
I have already answered this while you were missing.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
Yeah, we can
okay.
move to the next. Yeah.
So the next question is from Neon Milo, and it's a question come long observation. Even while political parties are not the governments or public authorities, the ground realities are quite different. The volunteers or members, as they're called, are often seen as public authorities by the common man because of their proximity to power. And these people make promises in the name of government and revenues collected from taxes. Is it not right then to treat political parties as a de facto organ of government and keep them under RTI? So it's a question to all the panelists. Any panelist can answer. Or rather, an observation, I would say, the thing that we are discussing today. So this is how the common people feel, sir.
No, actually, no. Our constitution is itself is a political document. So that does not mean that the political parties constituted under the Indian constitution. This is the basic law. Main law is the under the constitution. All laws are generated or made or created from the constitution. So that does not mean that political parties are functioning the public function. Political parties are the volunteer organization. They are doing their voluntarily job. They don't have any salary. They don't have any accommodation, government accommodation, like government accommodation or anything else. So unless and until the political parties are declared the public authorities by the parliament, we cannot say that they will be guided under the act, because definition is not there. This is the difficulties.
Right. So, I mean, people also have their own way of art. So there is the other question from Utpal Dash. And so it's in kind of, again, observation come question. Other than funding to political parties, what will be the benefits or necessities of bringing the political parties under the aegis of RTI Act 2005? Funding to political parties must be transparent, and that can be done through existing finance acts also, without using RTI 2005. So this probably a question which goes to Anil ji, if you could also say something
Okay.
about it.
Okay, it's a very good question which he has asked. But I want to just highlight the fact that in spite of the various acts which are there, the political party funding is increasing, and it is reached very gigantic proportions. As you can see now, it is in thousands of crores. notwithstanding all these things, now the various acts are also amended by the ruling dispensation, whichever party it may be, the present one or the previous one. I will not comment. We can talk of the present situation, in which if I were to tell you about a case, I'll just take 2 minutes on it. The famous FCRA case which ADR had filed, in which the Delhi High Court found BJP and Congress guilty of receiving foreign funds. As you are aware, as per the FCRA Act of 1976, and even now, political parties cannot receive foreign funding. So they amended the FCRA Act since they were in a corner, and we had filed a contempt petition with the government, the Home Ministry, as to why no action was taken on that High Court judgment of 2014. So they amended the FCRA Act with retrospective effect. So the government is capable of doing anything. So that is why I'm saying, for the people to know, and what does a common man know about electoral bonds? Very difficult. Very few people know what are the electoral bonds and what is the game which is going on. So that is why I'm saying RTI is a tool with a common man. He can get to know, something about which, like, after all, it is our taxpayers' money which is being used by the government for various issues, for various this thing. The funds which the political parties are collecting are from the common people, as also the big business houses. So aren't we entitled to know how it is being spent and how it is being collected? Is it black money? Is it white? Is it coming from shell companies, or where is it coming from? So, and the amount is going on increasing with every election. So, and where is the level playing field? There are some parties which are getting thousands of crores, and there are others, like they were saying, they don't even have a typewriter or a computer. So that is our logic, that RTI is very important, as far as the relationship with the political parties is concerned.
Thank you, sir. I mean, any other question? Okay. Katyani Kamraji is asking something. Is it not better to demand a separate act for political parties, as in other countries, asking for inner party democracy, for having elections of office bearers, selection of candidates, proportional reservation for SC, STs, women, etc., in giving tickets, not giving tickets to person with criminal charges against them, etc., and including transparency provisions on funding received, etc., in that act, rather than demanding them to be merely transparent under Right to Information Act?
Yeah, I'll take this on. This is again a good question from Katyani ji. We had, I think in 2010, ADR had taken up this issue and requested the retired Chief Justice Venkatachalaya, and he drafted a 10-page act, which was circulated to all the political parties and this thing, but nothing came of it because they do not want to be governed. We are governed by thousands of acts, but the political parties do not want to be regulated by any act. So that is the problem. And one of the speakers said, we have our constitution, and you should see what is there in this. We know how much of the constitution is actually followed by most of the political parties. They don't have elections. There is no system of some parties do have, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them, it is some family fiefdom type of thing which is going on. So you're right, there has to be a regulating this thing, but again, this has to be done by the parliament, and the politicians will, I don't think, want to do this sort of thing.
Do we have more questions? If at this point of time we, okay, Katyani ji is
Can we take
continuing.
questions from some other people also? Katyani ji is asking a lot of questions.
Her I mean, let me still read out. Okay, Utpal is again asking, what are the logics for declaring political parties as public authority? I think this has already been discussed in length, and I think almost all the speakers have spoken either in favor or against it. So again, going into it would.
If Utpalji can share his email ID, we will send the CIC judgment. He will see the rationale in that.
So Utpalji can actually write to us, write to ADR, and get more information about this. So if we don't have any other questions from our other viewers, we are almost going to close this in another 5 minutes time, and we still have our speakers. Some speakers probably have left, but the remaining speakers, we will go to each speaker for a minute for their concluding remark. So can I just have the speaker's view, please? I mean, I will start with this time Sir Partha Ghosh. Sir, your concluding remark.
Thank you very much for inviting me in this program. First time I am appearing such type of program. I will be happy if you in future invite me in such a program. I will definitely be there.
Thank you so much, sir. Do we have Sri Manoj Bhattacharya sir with us still? Seems not. We have Professor Omprakash Mishra with us. Sir, your last concluding remark. Sir, you are muted.
Unmuted. Hello.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to respond to few of the things that were said, but in any case, there's not much of a time. Just let me be very quick. The reference was made to political parties, and I think that is not a very fortunate, political party in relationship to what they are doing and what is the situation, etc., etc. It is it is so easy to be very lofty about. Manoj Bhattacharya was talking about his own party. In fact, in the last 24 hours, his party men, they have been found guilty of selling the party office in Malda. And he was also talking about something called left. I don't think that there is anything called left. There are political parties, separate political parties. And the biggest political party in Kerala, uh, belonging to the left, their general secretary, he has actually been accused of very serious crime, and he has taken leave. So therefore, there is no reason for any of the political parties leadership to try to insulate. And to Major General, I would like to say this, that sir, every individual in a political party would be responsible for their conduct. It is not the political party. It is only for the political party when we are talking to each other. We may say this party or that party. So far as criminal jurisdiction is concerned, that is liability is always for the individual in that political party. And last question uh, about funding. The political parties do not get fund. They do not get government fund, and it is actually very difficult and obscure logic to find out in what way that they benefit out of government. Government might decide not to do that, to give some offices. This is for the convenience. I'm talking of all the political parties. And if you think in terms of actually, anybody who receives any amount of money or concession from the government, then they become public authority. Then all the non-governmental organizations, directly or indirectly, receiving any type of concession, they become public authority. And anybody who gets benefit under the direct benefit scheme, they would also have to answer that how they have done it. So therefore, the official dom is different. Political party is a voluntary organization. They want to be in public authority, but then the liability is for the individual. So therefore, unless there is an act which will say that the political parties are public authority, and if they are public authority, then they have to be given, public functions, then they have to be given public role. That role is actually available only to the party members who contest elections and win and form the government, not for the another 4,000 political parties which actually are possibly there in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A final word from Anil Verma ji. Sir, concluding remark.
Thank you, Jaini ji, for organizing the webinar, and it is always good to engage with the political parties. I just want to remind everyone that ADR is a apolitical organization. We engage with political parties. We are not for or against any political parties. Our main interest is to highlight issues where we feel reforms are required, and we will continue doing so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Retired Major General Anil Verma, sir, Head of ADR. Thank you, Professor Omprakash Mishra. Thank you, Shri Asit Mitra ji. Thank you, Shri Manoj Bhattacharya. Thank you, Shri Partha Ghosh. Thank you, Shri Dr. Srikumar Mukherjee, for joining us today. And with this, we are at the end of this webinar. I thank you for your time. And as all of you said, this kind of interaction should continue. And we hope to see more political will from political parties to make our democracy transparent and strong. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny.